Morning and welcome to the Superintendent Community Update for Thursday, November 5th. To start off today with, again, shout outs and accolades. Focusing on, I know it's election week and patience is probably the name of the game this week. But a couple weeks back, I had referenced in one of these reports about so many things about the election are probably not good opportunities to take into the classroom. But Katie Richter and Ellie Tez had proven me wrong in one area, and I'm glad that they did. And so they had a really fantastic election process activity that they had adapted and taken into their first grade classrooms. It was highlighted on local news, picked up by some national news. And the story really is fantastic. So if you've had a chance to see it, hopefully you agree with me. If you've not had a chance to see that, please check out the website for that link. It's about a 3-minute story or so. And it really is heartwarming to see that the kids and the teachers get a sense of the democratic process, how democracy is really important, and even at the youngest of ages. So Katie and Ellie, really nice job. And I appreciate your work. As we move into COVID updates, this past week, the district was able to participate in a very focused conversation with Allegheny County Health Department, specifically around the Baldwin numbers, the Baldwin-Whitehall community numbers. As I've said on recent weeks of this video, as well as in other settings, our numbers are concerning, and they continue to be concerning. And when we look for patterns and trends, and what those cues and clues will be to get back to school more full time, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Looking at what those trends may be within our community, and looking for some reduction, consistent reduction in those positivity numbers. Really, the conversation with the county was probably more reassuring than not. I was concerned that they would come back with some strong recommendations that we should take a few steps backwards, and they absolutely did not. They did not do that. The focus was, how can we support you? We know where some of the numbers are really high within your community, trying to get their hands and arms around where they are and what that looks like. And very similar, just providing us some reassurance of the work that we're doing, trying to get a little information about some of the things, like when we shut down a couple of weeks ago, specifically what was that around, and we talked about that, and really our complications are going to be around staffing issues and the lack of available staff. That's not unique to Baldwin-Whitehall. It's really a system-wide, a entity-wide type of situation. The substitutes are just not available. As we work through contact tracing, we are finding it necessary to quarantine teachers, whether they're being infected, really being infected by community issues. I mean, the teachers are out, and they have lives as well, and they're out at shopping in stores and doing those types of things, being socially distant, but with community rates, and we see that there's positivity rates. Teachers are people, and people get sick, and that's happening. We know that in some situations, when the children are infected in the schools, there are circumstances, even the very best mitigation processes that are in place are still creating close contacts, and that means that we have to have teachers home for that quarantine period, which is 14 days. To keep kids in school in a hybrid model, the teacher can be at home, the teacher can teach, but we still need a person in the classroom to supervise the children. And that's where we're really starting to run into challenges. So the conversation with the county focused around those types of topics, and again, quite reassuring that our processes and procedures are good. They continue to be good, and we continue to be reassured by that, even as we do our contact tracing with teachers on nearly a daily basis. I just looking at our rates, have been trying to give updates on that each week, and so in Baldwin Borough, again, that seems to be the concern. Baldwin Borough is still the highest as far as case count in Allegheny County. I think last week, I think I shared the number of 610 or 615. We're now at 655, and so we do have concerns there. So Baldwin Borough, 45 new cases, a 28% positivity rate, and that's up from last week. And so the last 4 weeks, and again, looking at these trends, and this is one of the pieces of data that I will look at to try to make decisions as to what we're doing as a community for school. But in the last 4 weeks, we've gone from 25% to 16% to 20% to 28%. Numbers of cases, 41, 30, 37, and now 45. And so paying very, very close attention to that. Whitehall, the number of cases continue to go down. The positivity rate is about level. We were 11% last week. We're 12% this week. So just about flat. And that's down from 28% and then 32%. So tracking this for the last month, we've moved from 32% down to 12%. So great movement on that side of the community. From 34 cases up to 45 cases, even though it was a lower positivity rate, there were more cases. 34, 45, 17, and now 13. So 13 cases, 12% positivity rate. Once again, through those conversations with the county and using the data that's on their publicly available website, and I do have that link for you in the notes, we know that the Asian population is running at a positivity rate of 4 times that of other groups. And so it's a 4-to-1 positivity rate compared to other groups. Now, there's good and bad in that. When you talk about immunity or at some point, what will that look like? And is that a wave that we're working through? And will that end up resulting in lower rates in the future once we're able to move through that type of wave in the next few weeks, hopefully. But maybe that's a mixed type of message. It's challenging now, but will that prove to be beneficial down the road? Once again, comparisons to our neighboring communities. And so how are we stacking up to those who kind of touch our borders? And so Baldwin, we are at 331 cases per 10,000. Again, this is publicly available. To Google Allegheny County Health Department COVID, you'll see all these same numbers. 331 cases per 10,000. So we're up about 12 cases, up 12 cases from last week. Whitehall from 277 to 286. So the numbers per 10,000 up a little bit. But then those who would touch our borders. Jefferson Hills is up 9. Pleasant Hills up 17. South Park up 6. Bethel up 9. West Mifflin up 8. Brentwood up 11. Carrick up 12. And so we are seeing the gains all around us. So continued positivity rates, positive cases per 10,000. Once again, I had said earlier, the community of Baldwin Borough does still have the currently highest rate in Allegheny County, number of cases, 655, and we'll continue to track that. And those are the patterns that we want to be looking at as we consider adjusting any of our instructional models. And we're again talking more about that in the survey that's active right now. I did talk about issues of staffing. I want to go back to that because we are critically close. And I use those words very, very purposely. We are critically close to having to shut down classrooms due to lack of staffing. We've been able, up to this point, unless we had widespread issues where we couldn't kind of put our arms around it, and we talked about that. But up to this point, many of you have probably seen that your child's teacher is working from home, still able to teaching remotely, but they had to be quarantined. Either they were exposed, either through the community, through work, maybe they're even a positive case. So we've had to quarantine or isolate teachers, but in their place in the classroom, we've been able to staff that. Right now, at the rate of the number of staff members that we have out, we are nearly at that tipping point. In fact, we may be at it. We may be there. And so when I finish the call today, I'll be having conversations with our human resource department and principals to see how we're going to staff even for tomorrow's day of school. and there may be interruptions for tomorrow based upon those outcomes. The parent satisfaction survey that closed a couple Fridays ago, and I just wanted to share once again. We had about just short of 2,400 responses, 2,396 to be exact. I shared the full report last night at the board meeting with the Board of School Directors. I also shared, as the principals dove into this much deeper and came up with areas of concerns that they may have had, positivity areas, things that they're really happy about. Where are things working well as where things that need some additional attention. They crafted some goals that they will be working with their teachers beginning the second 9 weeks, which is now. And how do we move, regardless of what model we're using, Canvas I don't see going away anytime soon. So how do we get better with Canvas? How do we get better with live instruction? What does instruction look like in the classroom when the children are even present with us? Is it interactive or is it still computer-based? Those were the things that folks really dug into and are able to address and will be addressing with teachers and working together and seeing how we can get that to be better. There's a current, and I'm sorry, and the last thing on that, the results will be posted on the website. I'll post that result report on the website under the Back to Better tab. So you can check out those graphical representations of the answers, the responses there. We have a current survey that's out there right now, and I do have that on my other computer, so let me take a look. The survey is in regard to the instructional models, and if we were able to take a look at an instructional model change. And let me go through the questions. Hopefully you've seen that. We have 1,319 responses as of this morning. That's about 20 higher than just when I opened up this call 10 minutes ago. So please, if you've not seen that yet, please do submit a response. But let me go through those questions. So we ask, just simply, what grade is your child in? So at this point, we have really great representation across all 12 grades. And just as a recap, we are not asking at this point feedback from kindergarten. I know that's been a bit of a heated point. Kindergarten is when we started the year. We were really focused on providing consistency and stability for kindergarten children. And so we were committed to doing something as many days a week as we can. So the 4-day-a-week half-day program where children were in as consistent as they can to help build those routines and build those procedures and protocols was very important. Our focus right now is to see how we can provide that level of stability for as many other groups as we can. We know that it's a half day. We know that it's not equal to the full day. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes of instruction. There's not a lunch. There's not encore. We understand all of those things. But we also understand that it provides something that a hybrid 2-day-a-week model does not provide right now. So our first goal is to look at that level of stability or that level of consistency at other grade levels, and where can we increase that? And if we can get back around based upon successes elsewhere by looking at kindergarten, then by all means we will want to do that. But we want to really focus and provide that stability at some of the other grade levels first. So once again, the grade level results with those 1,319 responses, pretty even all the way across grades 1 through 12. The schools, we have great representation from the schools so far. So just about even proportion about where with the school enrollment. Most of the responses are from Baldwin High School. That makes sense. That's where most of the kids attend. Second largest group at Harrison, which is the second largest group of enrollment, and then followed by Whitehall and then McEnroe, because McEnroe we're just asking for first grade responses. When we get into some of the matters of current learning models, right now we have nearly 78% of the 1,319 responses are currently participating in the hybrid model, which is pretty even with the overall numbers. And when we look at our total 4,600 students, we're right around a 70-30 split. So it's a little bit heavy at 78%, with the remaining 20% in the remote learner. And then we just have a very small percentage, a couple percent, that do a 4-day week now by special invitation. we know that if we look at if we look at a full week or a 4-day a week model, things have to change inside the school. When you're introduced twice as many children, potentially twice as many children, what will that look like? So I asked folks to acknowledge, not that they have to agree with these conditions, but they acknowledge that they'll be present. So you can't move on in the survey unless you take a moment and read those things. And again, it does not mean that you agree that has to happen or this is what should be happening, but you have to agree that there's a possibility that these things may happen. So school bus loads may return to pre-COVID levels, dealing with the elementary, potentially 2 and 3 in a seat, secondary, 2 in a seat just about everywhere. So 65 students, 50 students respectively. Their bus routes most likely will be longer. We're down about 13 drivers because we know that many of our drivers are elderly, of a high risk population, and they're not willing to take the risk driving right now. And so we're down about 13 drivers. We have the vehicles. We're doing the best that we can to try to recruit drivers. Of course, there's a 40-foot billboard on the front of Baldwin High School right now. And it's working. We have about 5 people that have signed up. We have the training classes moving forward. We hope to continue to get more folks interested in driving a school bus. Channel 11 just ran a story last week. Baldwin High School, or Baldwin Whitehall School District, was very solidly represented in that story about school bus shortages or driver shortages. We have the buses, we don't have the drivers to put in them. Social distancing in school most likely will be reduced from 6 feet to 3 feet, because if you're introducing twice as many children, then in classes, students will be sitting closer to each other. Mask, of course, will still be required at all times, except in the cafeteria as children are eating. The in-class teacher proximity, and this is an area where I do get concerned. What does the in-class activity look like? And so as we're worried about keeping teachers healthy and keeping teachers at work in order to teach, what will their interaction with kids look like? Will it be typical interaction where they're moving through the class? Or will it be a very stand and deliver type of approach? I'm not being critical of it, just observing that may be the case. We've seen it already where we've had higher levels of positivity in some schools. Teachers are concerned about their own health. They're concerned about the health of their family members, loved ones at home, their own health. And so what does that turn into? And does it turn into a very distant, sanitized type of classroom environment without the typical interactions that we would expect given other times? We would expect additional short-term school closures or classroom closures. If there's more children in the class, there's more opportunity for the virus to come in to the class. The kids are closer together. We don't have the mitigation strategies in place that may help us to basically just extract where the problem is with the virus or with the exposure and keep moving on. Now that exposure becomes much greater, and with kids so much closer, the idea of close contacts will definitely grow. And so as that may happen, the quarantine or the isolation groupings definitely will grow as well. So while we've tracked, I believe that Mrs. Sproul said we've been tracking nearly 200 close contacts. The county informed us that we've had roughly 25 student cases in our buildings each month. So 25 in September, 25 in October. Pretty much higher than nearly anywhere else. And so as we bring children in more often, what will that look like? At least right now, until numbers start to solidify. And then in order to try to create some of that additional distancing, especially for lunch, some of those auxiliary areas like a gymnasium may not be available. And so what does that do to some of those classes? Because if we need the gym, like for example, Whitehall, half the gym is already used for lunch during the lunch periods. And so phys ed is restricted to only half the gymnasium. But if we have twice as many children coming in, we may need additional space that would limit those areas during that portion of the day. So with those conditions in mind, remember we started about nearly 78% that are doing hybrid now. With those conditions in mind, would you still be willing to send your child back 4 days a week? So sending them back into the building. And that number drops from 78 down to just about 64%. So there's a less of a comfort level with those conditions. And then the next question was if the models that were present would be hybrid, remote, or full learning. Those numbers run about the same. About 67% said they'd want to go full learning. About 16% said they'd like to stay with remote learning. And because there will still be a remote option. If we do go to a full in-person, there will still be a remote option for folks. And then the third was the hybrid, which also is running about 16%. Then we had the opportunity for open comment, and I think the comments are very, very helpful, from just concerns at home, the desire to see the CDC guidelines in place, through other comments of really a lack of worry or concern about the virus because of the age of the children and some of the statistics of recovery rate, being over 99% with young children. And so the comments are helpful. And so this survey will close Monday the 9th. Please, if you've not submitted anything, 2 more. So since we've been talking on the 1321, keep them coming in. Good news. So I appreciate that. Get them in by Monday. We'll keep pushing out reminders in regard to that. Last night at the board meeting, we did have some conversation around Canvas, concerns of Canvas that continue. We'll be beginning today a teacher users forum here. We're doing a secondary forum and an elementary forum, just really trying to identify through the course of using this platform for a 9 weeks period, really looking at some positive strategies, things that are working, effective strategies, and identifying things that maybe are causing some of the heartburn, and really pushing out the things that are much more positive. We continue to try to address any individual concerns with submission of assignments, anything else, but we really are looking, and we really need a systemic approach. We can't just simply be putting out fires when fires happen. We need to look at some causes and be more proactive. And so we are going to continue looking at that. We're not happy that folks are being frustrated by the platform. I don't think there's anything unique about this platform compared to other ones out there. There's something called Schoology. There's something called Blackboard. Just the learning curve has been steep. Sometimes it continues to get steeper. And we'll just continue to look at what we can do to fix and resolve those issues. Moving on to Painter, through all of this, we still need to talk about as we move forward with a brand new school building and what that looks like. And so the Painter construction update, the district held a small neighborhood meeting with really the folks that live in the closest proximity to Painter. That was held Monday night at the Baldwin Borough Building. The focus was really on the layout, the traffic flows, because the proposed model opens up the cul-de-sac on Noreen Drive. Right now, Painter, if you're familiar with that site, you're very aware that all traffic, bus and vehicular traffic, car traffic, has to enter through through Pleasant View Drive, and it's a bottleneck. And so we propose to have a secondary entrance for car traffic just for the arrival and departure of children during those 2 specific periods of time, coming off of Noreen Drive. And so there was a lot of concern. It's Noreen Drive, and that bottom portion of Pleasant View is a very nice, quiet residential street with not a lot of traffic. Unless you live down there, there's really not a reason to go there. And so there is great concern about what that looks like. A couple things came out of there, and I think the conversation was wonderful. We had Greer Hayden and Rob Schaefer from our architect firm, HHSDR. Miss Amanda Priori, board member, was there, as well as Chief Tony Cortazzo and Borough Manager Bob Fear. We're all in attendance. Thea Hamsey was there also to help try to track concerns that residents had. They are concerned about the traffic flow. They're concerned about the busyness on the street. But also what came about is some things that we can actually really do better with, regardless. Folks that are not adhering to speed limit and stop signs, people being in a rush, and faculty members and parents alike. I think that as we take a few steps back from that neighborhood, give them a chance to pause without that type of traffic coming in there, we have to think about how we are visitors to that neighborhood and what that looks like and how we respond and respect those spaces. And so I think that the parents and the neighbors were incredibly respectful. We had great conversation, and we'll be able to move forward. And again, we'll continue to have that partnership and that relationship. So thank you to Mrs. Storhauer for helping to organize that forum. I think it worked out quite well. The asbestos removal at the Painter Building will begin on Monday the 9th. And as part of that, please remember that there should be no admittance to the building at that point. There shouldn't be anyone going over there. And even those who walk around the buildings, please keep your distance from there. A lot of the work does include the windows because the caulking or the glazing of the windows is positive for asbestos. So all those windows in the exterior of the building need to come out. Once they're done, the building will have plywood covering those openings, but the workers will be working probably around the outside of the building as much as inside the building. And so I know that it's a popular area for walking, especially as the weather stays positive, but please keep that buffer zone from the area. There will be additional drilling happening, and so there's just to make sure that the ground is stable, and we've received fantastic reports about the amount of bedrock and weathered rock that's under the building. We know that, but we also know that there's considerable mining that has happened historically in the Baldwin area. And so there's going to be additional drilling happening there soon. The board authorized that last night. And there's going to be interior drilling and exterior drilling. There are some spaces interior to the building that we still need to do some exploration. And so going down about 100 feet, and they have some rigging that can be used inside. So residents may see and hear that happening. And so I hope it's not too disruptive to you. I had a conversation last Friday afternoon with several of the residents who live on the corners or the intersections getting into the Painter property. Because as we go through this process with and needing construction easements, we'll be bringing in tractor trailers with large equipment, supplies, materials, beams, all of the above. It's going to be very difficult to get in and out of that plan. And so anywhere we thought through a study that would be too tight, I sat down with those residents. I'd really like to just say thank you because we've had some great conversation. Folks understand that in order to make progress, sometimes there's some temporary inconveniences. And I had the opportunity to sit down with my kindergarten teacher. I know Dr. Lutz is getting old, but I sat down with my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Ratowski. Ms. Ratowski is 95 years old. For all of us, she was Miss Honey. St. Albert's kindergarten teacher for so many of all of us. But she lives in the neighborhood. I sat down with her, had a conversation, and it was great to reconnect with old Miss Honey. The public access, the Act 34 public hearing, the Act 34 public hearing. So when you get into a building project, there has to be this official hearing. It will be on December 1st at Baldwin High School in the auditorium, 7 p.m. A full review of the project from soup to nuts, from the need side of things, the design side, the financial aspect, the legal side. All that will happen December 1st, 7 p.m., Baldwin High School auditorium. Moving on, winter sports, just a couple more topics. Winter sports, we did receive notification. We will proceed as scheduled, all levels. And so the full schedules. So in the fall, there were reduced numbers of events. There was a delayed start. Neither of those things were going to happen. We're going to start on time, and the same number of events that otherwise would be scheduled will be scheduled. Still a limitation on spectators. And the South Hills Athletic Directors Association, the agreement between all of those folks that at home, we will have spectators. I mean, we will, our spectators can come to home events. We'll be limited to 20% of the venue capacity. So like in the main gym, it's 2,000 of the capacity, so we're limited to 400. That includes players, personnel to help that need to help the event happen, as well as spectators. In the small gym, the high school, about 1,000. So we're probably limited to no more than about 200 people. Away events, there will be no access to away or visiting team parents. There was the agreement that to open up the access to the home parents for their own venues, and then have no access for the away parents. That will be at all levels. So middle school sports have already begun. and the high school winter sports will be beginning soon. District permits. We also know that our community groups that are really critical to the success or the future success of our high school programs as our feeder programs. They're really important, and the winter activities need gymnasium permits. So we are having specific conversations with about 5 groups. They are happening this week and next. So the access we're just looking for weekends. So if you're a parent, kids in the building, please don't worry that community groups are going to be in at any time when your children would be in. I mean, not even during the week. We want during the week to focus for our custodial staff to be on preparing classrooms to make sure they're ready for the next day. But we are looking at the weekends and opening some of our buildings up for that. The track at the high school, it is now open during daylight hours. I think there were a couple hiccups in that process this week, but the track at the high school will be open during daylight hours. We are requiring that any access will happen through the visitors gate through coming off the south parking lot. So come down the visitors ramp, access the track. There is no access to the field. The field access is only with permit. And so if we find that folks are using the field, we will ask you to not. And if that would continue, then we may need to look at any other types of restrictions. So the track only, daylight hours. Calendar question that's going to be out there. Probably follow this up with a survey. Yes, I know, another survey. But I can't get your feedback in a very systemic way without a survey. But it would maybe be like a 1-question survey. Calendar question came up is that, when you look at the breaks coming up with Thanksgiving and then the winter break, the Monday, Tuesday, the group 1 would be in session, and the late week group 2 would not be in session. So, how balanced is our school year with group 1 days compared to group 2 days if we do anything about it? This is something that we looked at from the very beginning of the school year and tried to put together a calendar that is pretty balanced. Right now, from September 14th through December 22nd, so the first day of in-person through the last day of in-person, group 1, there has been and will be 28 days. Group 2, there has been and will be 26 days. So it's a 2-day differential. So pretty close. Of course, not perfect, but pretty close. So the thought out there was, what if we would look at moving December 22nd, the Tuesday, to be a group 2 day? Well, the first thing, everyone would have 27 days of school in the first semester, at least in the 2020 school year. 27 in-person days. It does a couple other things too. The holiday activities, which are especially at the elementary level and of course secondary level as well, they'd be at a more relevant point of time consistent with the break. They could do those things on that Tuesday. It allows the week before really to stay focused on instructional activities. Otherwise, on that Friday, most likely group 2 kids would be engaging in holiday type of activities, because we want to do that. We did it with Halloween. We want to try to create some normalcy with school activities, because having kids interested in school and looking at the school day through the kids' eyes is really important. It would even out the number of days, the in-person number of days through the end of the 2020 year. So I'm going to put that question out to folks. I don't want to create a problem by trying to fix one, if it even is a problem. I don't want to create childcare issues and so forth by having group 1 kids stay home on that Tuesday and then having group 2 kids come in. But I'll push that out and then just give the option that if kids can come in, then they would, particularly around that group 1 and group 2, but no penalty if they can't, that type of thing. The second semester, should we stay in this type of model? And I know that there's a big question out there, and we continue to ask for your feedback, but should we stay in this type of model? Right now, the days are perfect at 41. So January 4th through June 8th, both groups 1 and group 2 have 41 days for each. I want to wrap up as we are in the midst of election week. I guess we've gone from election day to election week, and understandably, we understand why and why things are that way with the counting of the mail-in votes or the absentee ballots. Mr. Tomaszewski put out a great message earlier this week, and I'd like to share that, because I think it really, as we continue to talk about grace. What does grace look like? We've been talking about grace in an academic sense, but what does grace look like just in life? And I think that Mr. T kind of gets to the heart of it. I mean, while the focus is on the student body in his message, I think it very easily, as we change a few numbers or change a few words, the focus could easily be district-wide and community-wide. And so his message, let me read it. Dear Highlanders, as we engage in the process of selecting our next president, members of Congress and various state and local officials, we must remember that we are one community of learners at BHS. It is my hope and expectation that those students who are able to vote will participate in our country's democratic process. Though your voice may seem insignificant, I can assure you that it is not. Ensuring that your voice is heard and that your vote is counted is not only your right, but it is also your responsibility. For those students who are not yet able to vote, I want you to recognize that regardless of the outcome of the 2020 election, members of our school community will be upset, they will be confused, and maybe anxious. How you choose to carry yourself in response to your peers' feelings will speak volumes of your character. Certainly, you can celebrate if the candidates that you were rooting for are successful, but do not gloat. Do not weaponize your happiness to attack those who are around you that are upset. Rather, extend kindness and grace. There's that word again. Ensure that those around you feel safe and welcome at our school and in our classrooms. Though the outcomes of today's elections are uncertain, one thing is certain. 2,200 students and 200 faculty and staff members at our school will still be one school community tomorrow, next week, next month, and next year. It is my expectation both for you, for and of you, that we will move forward together and continue to make Baldwin High School the best that it can be. Mr. T, BHS principal. So again, thinking about applying that to a broader spectrum and a broader band, really a great message. And we don't always have to be in agreement. Our American given right is we are able to disagree, but I think it's really important that we can disagree without being disagreeable, and that would be the success of being one. So please remember, if you're sick, please stay home. If someone close to you is being tested, stay home. Remember, 6 feet, 15 minutes, wear a face covering, and show grace to one another. And I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy the weather. I think we're having a nice little stretch of weather, and I will see you again next week.